Hey everyone, Dan the Cardman back again. So something a little bit different again, as I've mentioned in a few videos now. I just thought I would give some comments around some of the grading alternatives in Australia. So obviously in front of you, you can see not everything is a graded card from Australia. They're just some examples and I'll talk to those in a second. I apologize again, the lighting is getting a little bit better. You can see my camera's still a little bit washed out. I'm really struggling to get like a super clear image with my iPhone through OBS. I'm going to try and fix that in the coming weeks, but for the time being, please bear with me. It looks a little bit annoying. Like it's fine when the cards are up close, but you can see when they're sitting on the table, it's a bit blurred out, which is a bit frustrating. It's fine for like normal cards, and it's just more noticeable with things like some of these slabs, right? And apologies if you can hear my cat meowing in the background. So I just wanted to talk through some of the alternatives we have here in Australia, because a few have popped up like there has been all over the world during the pandemic, with people trying to capitalize on the backlog that PSA and BGS have. So obviously, like, my preference across anything is PSA, right? Like, we should be grading with PSA. I think within 6 to 12 months, I think they'll be back to BAU. They'll be through their backlog and they should be opening back up to the public through all their levels. I think they'll come back at a more expensive price point, which is to be expected, but I think things will turn around relatively quickly. What I think, like, they'll obviously get a huge influx in, so that might cause some issues again, but I think they might implement some kind of lottery system or first come, first serve per week, like HGA have leveraged in the past. So like I said, yeah, PSA is they're the industry standard, right? They have the best market value of anything. BGS is up there as well, but PSA is the preferred one when it comes to sports cards. And things will go back and forth, but that's just generally what the consensus is, right? So I think from an Australian perspective, you want to grade with PSA if you can. Now, just some examples here, some Michael Jordan stickers that you've seen in the past. These are the two that I've kept for myself. Everything else was sold. And then I've got two Kobe Bryant rookies here. Topps regular and then the Stadium Club rookie as well. Let's put those to the side, and then, like, you've heard me talk in the past, and there'll be a video coming up around, or it's probably already out actually, around my opinions of HGA and some of the issues they've faced. Obviously, from my perspective, I really like what their labels are doing. I like their slabs, probably the best out of anything I've seen so far. So in the interim, I'm going to go with HGA, but then the question comes, okay, what am I going to do with cards in Australia, right? I've got cards I want to get graded. I don't think they're worth a whole lot of money. I want to get them protected for the time being. So basically what is it that I should be doing? Now, I think the easy answer is Card Grading Australia. Now, they were like really the only fundamentally sound option we had for a long time. I think there may have been some others, but they've been around for well over a decade now, I think, if I recall. They've got you can sort of trust their grades. They've got the most, what's the word I'm looking for? They've got the most skin in the game when it comes to all of them, so you can take the value from them, right? So there's some examples here you've seen in the past, some Dragon Ball Z Premium cards that have had graded, and then a couple others. So these two are for sale currently on my eBay page, so if you see them, please have a look. So I think they're the best option to go with, and I'll quickly now just share what you've seen their website before. I've shared it on the page. You guys have probably seen it yourself, but they're probably the best because they've been around the longest, right? Their labels are a little bit bland if we just go back to what they look like. A little bit basic. They sort of lack information. They're based on a recent press release they've done. They're looking to improve that. They did change their labels, which they got a lot of backlash for. They've reverted back to these, but they are looking to improve their labeling and then also putting QR codes on the back. So we just go back. Like, that's the one detractor, right? The labels. But everyone trusts their judgment, so on and so forth. So here on their page, you can see like what their services are, what they grade, what they don't grade. I think somewhere around here we go. We've got like their current pricing, which is pretty cheap, right? From like, obviously you don't, a bit behind at the moment, like most places are, but $16 to get a card graded is pretty cheap, right? For something that you want to keep in your PC, there's no problem at all going with that. And like I said, they're probably the best ones to go with. But recently there's a few others that have come to light. I won't go through all of them, but the main ones are, and they've actually both got the same acronym, which is really confusing. And I think they're both based in Sydney. But you've got Tcg Grading, which I think stands for Trading Card Grading. I'm not 100% certain. You can just go through their website. So they're one of the ones that have popped up in the middle of COVID. We can go through their pricing very quickly. I'm not a huge fan of their labels, and I don't know a lot about them. Their bulk prices, routine, I'm not sure what the timing is on that. We can quickly check. 33 business days, so it's a bit bit cheaper than Card Grading Australia. It's probably in between, like $1.50 cheaper a card. And their labels are pretty cool, to be honest. If I can find one, probably I should have had this up, but then I accidentally closed the window. I don't believe these guys do subgrades. Let me see very quickly. You can sort of see that's what their labeling looks like, right? I'm not a huge fan of their logo. I've said this before. I think their labels, the writing's a bit too small, but they're holographic, so they look really, really cool with some cards. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of the logo or how small some of this stuff is, but if they fix that, it might be an interesting option. So it's curious to see how they're going to progress over time, like what their grading standards are like. I've yet to see one of these slabs in hand, but from what I've seen, they do look, what it appears they're grading pretty leniently, to be honest. I've seen some cards graded at a high level or a higher grade that probably should have got something a bit smaller. And they're mainly focusing on Pokemon and trading card game stuff, things like that. I don't think they do too many sports cards. So yeah, $50 a card. I think out of the two, the preference would be going with Card Grading Australia, purely because they've been around the longest, right? Or they've mentioned they've done some NBA stuff. And then the really interesting one that also has TCG as their name is probably the one I would go with outside of CGA for like Pokemon cards, just to test out. I don't know why I'm clicking there. I'm clicking the wrong spot. Sorry. You can see here, their labeling looks really nice, and they've got subgrades on the back. I think these guys have like some of the best labeling I've seen. I've seen some of these cards in person, and in person they look honestly phenomenal. And their labeling is really easy to understand. I like the fact the subgrades are on the back, and with some cards, this like etched kind of labeling, it looks really good. So as you can see, they've got certificate number on the back, and then basically the subgrades. One thing they're looking at doing, which I'm not necessarily a huge fan of, is for cards that are severely off-centered, they're going to exclude the centering from the grade. I don't know if they've gone through with that. They mentioned it on their socials a while ago, and I reached out to them. So basically what that means is if you've got a card significantly off-centered, that would normally get a 3 or 4, something along those lines. But they would get a 10 based on everything else. They'd still show a 10 on the front, but then on the back of the card, they'd mention centering 3, and then basically, yeah, I don't like that approach, and I'd be a bit disappointed if they do go ahead with that, because I think it takes away from their product. But in terms of something that's a really good alternative to the likes of Card Grading Australia, I think these guys are the ones, because their labels look fantastic from what I've heard. I haven't really felt around with their slabs too much, but their slabs felt pretty good in the hand. That's a really good thing. So if their standards are pretty good, I've yet to see anything that makes me question their level of grading, to be honest. I have seen a lot of high-graded cards, but I'm not sure if that's just because people have been submitting good cards or not. But if they have that high level, then I think, with some of their recently graded stuff here, then I think they're a good alternative, right? Especially from a Pokemon perspective. So these guys are primarily focusing on Pokemon at the moment. I think they may have just recently expanded to Dragon Ball Super. I'm not 100% certain, so that's a good thing. That they're taking their time, and they're willing to take their time. They're not going to rush, which some of these other guys globally that you see in some of these, like, I don't even know the names, there's like 50 grading card companies a week. They're rushing, just trying to pump crap out, right? Trying to make that money. These guys at least have stayed central, and they're just going to go about it the right way. I know I'm rambling. That's to be expected with me, right? So yeah, it's like they're probably the 3 main options. I know there's a few others, but they're probably the 3 main ones. So like I said, if you've in Australia and want to know who to grade with, go with Card Grading Australia first and foremost, because they've been around the longest. They have their skin in the game. You know that these guys are valued pretty well long term. Like nothing in Australia is really valued well compared to what the alternatives are globally. But from an Australian perspective, these guys are the best. They're the benchmark. So they can do some improvements, like I said, which they are looking at doing. But if you're not a fan of the label for the time being, or you're not too concerned around what the standards are of the other 2 companies or the other 2 main ones, it's probably worth dipping your toe in just to see, like similar to HGA, right? So like I took a gamble with HGA. They're very new, so I was like, okay, they're not that expensive. I'll submit my cards. If we get good grades, let's see how we go. Because if we find 10 years down the line that HGA, for example, is a very good company, then having 9s from them, and based on what I've seen, they rarely give away 10s, primarily 9.5. So a 9 from them might eventually be worth the same amount of money as a 9 from PSA. We don't know, probably not, but that's sort of the risk you're taking, right? Where it could be the same in Australia with the likes of both TCGs, primarily the second one with the black and gold label, where you might be like, okay, it's a little bit cheaper. I like their labels a little bit better. I don't think there's enough resale value on them, but you know what? I'm just going to go with them for the time being, get my PC done, and then maybe 5 years' time or a few years' time, they might be worth more than CGA, or the market might value them more than CGA in general. So you get in early while it's cheap, because obviously if they become really popular, they'll be raising their prices to be better than these guys because there'd be a premium, right? So that's sort of my opinion. I think, like I said, go CGA if you want to take the gamble, go with the other two to pay off down the line. But for the time being, I think these guys have the best grading out there. So like, do with that what you will, right? But just to remind you, there's these two TCG companies. So there's tcggrading.com.au and then tradingcardgrading.com.au. So I think outside of CGA, these would be my preference, just because I like their slabs and the looks of their labels. These guys could look to improve it, I guess. Like, their labeling it's a bit hard to read, but their holographic effect is really cool. And if you go to their Instagram pages, you can see it in detail where they do it on a they basically get it and show you what it looks like under the sun, and they look crazy. And some of these really cool holographic cards look phenomenal in their slabs. So again, haven't touched one in hand, but like I said, that's sort of the standard. That's where we're at right now in Australia. Those are the three main ones. There's a few others. There's a company in Australia. Let me pause this video very quickly because I just remembered about that. Give me 1 second. Sorry guys, I can't find the website or the post, but basically they were a company that doesn't grade, but they slab cards. They're Australian based. I think they're based in Melbourne, primarily focusing on AFL and sports cards, where they'll basically give the details of the card in the colors of the team, and they look really, really cool in a slab. So they won't grade them, but they'll color them to the jersey of the player, which is really cool. If I remember what they are, or if I manage to see it again, I'll put it in the description of the video. So apologies for that. But basically, like I said, PSA, industry standard, go with them if you can. When things are back to normal, HGA in the interim for me, or SGC. From an Australian perspective, I think CGA is the one to go with, because, like I said, they've been around the longest. If you're looking for an alternative, or you want to try out something different for a little bit cheaper, go with the two TCGs, whatever one you like the labeling the best of. I think their levels of grading are probably the same. I've probably gone back and forth on that in this video, but it's hard to comment yet because they're so new, right? So if you want to take the risk, go with them, but I think you'll be happy regardless, right? Because you're not going to be sending your expensive cards to any of these guys. Eventually they should be going to PSA or BGS. So it's important, if it's for your PC, just go with what you love, right? So as always, thank you. Just a quick little video. I hope you liked that. As I mentioned a few times, I'm going to try and get into a regular routine, videos every Tuesday and Thursday with card breaks and booster pack openings, things like that. I'll have Sundays for like hobby updates, key things that have happened within the hobby, like the HGA video from yesterday. And then also I'll probably try and do one-off things like that here and there during the week on how to grade, how to submit, who do I submit with, so on and so forth. So keep an eye out. Again, apologies for the lighting. I think my videos are getting a little bit better video quality, but I'm always trying to improve. So if you got any tips, please let me know. And thank you. As always, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.